Hello, everyone. Welcome to another lecture on theory. I am Dr. Dilsola Fazilova, and we are going to talk about symbolic interactionism today. In our last classes, we discussed structural functionalism, one of the grand theories in sociology, and we talked about Durkheim's contribution to structural functionalism, and then Talcott Parsons's systems theory and his contribution to structural functionalism. And we said that structural functionalism explains society as different parts, social institutions existing in society, like family, education, religion, media, government, politics, law, healthcare system, all of them existing in society and interacting with one another in constructing this equilibrium or stability in society. They work together and create this stability. You don't have to go ahead and try to save society. It functions on its own. And there are certain norms and values and belief systems in this every social institution, and society interacts with one another, or these social institutions interact through these norms, values, belief systems, and people's roles. So now, to understand that part of interaction, we need to know a little bit about symbolic interactionism. Symbolic interactionism is a theory that explains society in the micro level, the individual and group level. So people interact with one another, it argues, through symbols. Otherwise, they will not be able to interact in society. I always try to start this theory from the beginning of human societies. In the beginning of human societies, people were living in different parts of the world, and they were intending to fulfill their natural needs, that basic needs like shelter, clothing, food, and other stuff, right? So to do so, they were coming up with using stuff from nature, that trees and wood and stones and other stuff, to create their culture. They were making their own clothes, they were making their own unique food, they were hunting, maybe using that, their leather for clothing and using the meat for creating different kinds of food. And they were creating their first homes, and they were naming everything they create, or naming everything around them to interact with one another. So symbols were being created and used for interaction. And over time, the cultures shaped. The cultures have their own unique language, unique way of representing themselves, their homes and clothing and food, and everything is unique for them, developed over hundreds of years, right? And they understand one another through historically developed belief systems like religions or other belief systems. So that shows us how people interact with one another through symbols, norms, and belief systems they created. So therefore, symbolic interactionism intends to understand the fabric of symbols, norms, and belief systems in society that enables people to interact with one another. Now I'm going to share my PowerPoint and we will continue our discussion. So symbolic interactionism was primarily developed by two people. One of them was a professor, and then one of them was his student, Herbert Mead and Herbert Blumer, who coined, actually Bloomer coined the term symbolic interactionism. The theory centers on the idea that reality is not fixed, but socially constructed through communication and interaction. So like our language, which developed over time, everything around us in the social world constructed through interactions. For example, we created houses in the beginning, and we called it houses. Maybe if there's different kinds of houses, we named them differently, and people called them differently, and they understand what they mean because the idea of house, how they view the house with the name, was kind of matching their structure, the construction of the words in that process. So we live in the world where we can see this natural world, right? The mountains and rivers and the forests and everything around us, which is a nature. And then we create our culture. Whatever meanings we give to this thing is maybe we create roads, maybe we create playgrounds, maybe we use rocks to build our homes. We give meaning and we give names to this stuff, and that becomes our culture. So everything around us has a name, and then that's how we know what is what. For example, my phone is phone. When I say my phone, you understand this is a phone, and you know what the phone is, and you also know this is mine because I said my phone. If I say your language, you understand that I am talking about that something belongs to you because I use the word your. So we learned that through communication and interaction over time. So everything around us, including all these names and meanings created and all these symbols created, are socially constructed. For example, when you go to church or mosque or temple, you know what to do if you are a believer. So all the scriptures and symbols and belief systems is, the attached to this place, and you know exactly where the symbol is coming from and what do you need to go when you get there. If you are non-believer, however, when you go to mosque, church, or temple, you don't know what to do. Perhaps you don't know what those symbols mean. Sometimes when you go to different places in the world, and if people are communicating through different languages, now you have no tools to communicate with them. You struggle because you're not familiar with the symbols and tools created to interact. Perhaps you don't know the culture or the religion or norms in that place. Then you're lost. So until you familiarize yourself with the new setting, you don't know how to interact with people. That shows us that the social life around us is socially constructed. The key concepts in symbolic interactionism is symbols. Symbols are central to human communication. They are anything that carries a specific meaning, example, words, gestures, objects. These meanings are agreed upon within a society. So when I say you are a student, that everybody is agreed that you are a student because you are taking these courses through university. Everybody understands that you are part of this community and your role in this university is a student, right? So meaning is created and attached to your role to make other people understand that what you're doing in the university. Meanings, on the other hand, the symbols, meanings of symbols is created and maintained through social interaction. Meaning is not inherent in objects or actions, but is constructed and reconstructed as individuals interact. So certain meanings exist because it's historically created, or certain meanings we create in our daily lives. Some of the meanings are created because there are some solid stuff. For example, we talk about home, or we talk about book. There's an object, and then we create meaning about it, and we have understanding of it. But certain meanings are created, the object is not attached to it. For example, race. We created the word, like we understand that people have different color of skin, which is continuum. There's all different colors of skin, and they are beautifully made. All of them are equal. And then certain people at some point in the history used these differences in color to create social hierarchies. And then they created race, and then they created racism. So they attached different meanings to different colors of skin, which wasn't natural. So when they created different meanings, some skin color is superior to other skin color, they reproduced these meanings over time, and it became very harmful part of society. So meanings are not always good. So it can be harmful for society as well. So sometimes we create meanings and it keep reproducing itself, and it also ingrained in social institutions that getting rid of that harmful meanings is very, very difficult. So people act based on the meanings they ascribe to things. For example, when I'm again talking about race and racism, people act based on what they think, and they forget their ownership or authorship of that they constructed this kind of meanings. They feel that this always existed, and maybe there's some truth about it. For example, when it comes to different colors of skin, the first, the biologists or certain scholars, they try to describe different races and attach meanings to their behaviors. Like they describe their behaviors as part of their race. For example, early biologists, they were talking about that there's some of the I'm not remembering the name of it, but there was certain kind of body shapes were attached to different kind of behaviors. For example, if somebody is big and dark, they were like, maybe that person is aggressive, or if somebody's pale, maybe that is that is the symbol of weakness, for example. We created all these different kinds of meanings. This concept stems from the idea that our perception of reality is shaped by the social processes around us. For example, we created social institutions. We created, for example, political systems. We created laws. We created all these legal systems, and then we attached all different, we developed over the centuries, and they became very defined, structured in society. And now they are the reality. We that perceive them as something existed forever, right? And the actual thing is they shaped through the processes that we are the authors of creating all these things, and then all the realities around us that, for example, understanding of family, understanding of social institutions, politics, laws, or even the borders of the countries and languages, all of them are our construction, our creation. Also, there is certain scholars continued the understanding of symbolic interactionism. And then there is a conversation about self, how people perceive themselves, how we understand ourselves. The self emerges from social interaction. For example, you call me an instructor or professor because you know my role within the institution, that I teach sociology, right? So me as I as a the professor or instructor shaped because of your and anybody else's understanding of my role. The self is constructed. You, as you, also shaped through the construction of this reality, social interaction. Your parents call you son or a daughter. Your friends call you a friend. You, woman or men, you are from certain background. Maybe English is your first language, maybe it's your second language. So this, all of them shaped through social interactions with other people. According to Mead, individuals develop a self-concept by imagining how others see them. This is known as the looking glass self. So, for example, I understand myself because of your understanding of me as an instructor, and you understanding yourself because of my understanding of you as a student. Also, your parents' understanding of you as their children, right? This is what Charles Cooley calls looking glass. Bloomer, however, was one of the main contributors to symbolic interactionalism. He outlined the core principles of symbolic interactionalism, which provide the foundation for the theory. So, as we already said, one of the elements of symbolic interactionalism is meaning. People act towards things based on the meanings those things have for them. For example, you call your father a dad or a father because the meaning attached to that man, right? That is the person who's your father. Also, you interact with him through respect, or however you're encouraged to interact with him in your family. Also, he's a provider. Probably you will go and ask for buying you a new computer. Maybe you need help with your car, or maybe you will invite him to your graduation party, or because of his role as a father, you understand the meaning of what father means, then you will interact with him through these meanings. Language is another very, very important element in symbolic interactionism. Language provides the means by which symbols are interpreted. It allows individuals to interact and exchange meanings. As I mentioned in the beginning of my lecture, if we didn't create language when we created objects, for example, phone, if we don't call him a phone, then everybody calls it differently. Therefore, there is no understanding of what this small technology is. Also, we give them specific names. For example, we call them Samsung phone or iPhone, or there are different kinds of phones came out. For example, we say, what do we say? Like Pro Max or whatever you call them. And when you say that specific name, title, you understand what the conversation is about. So that's what language enables us. Without language, we would not have this common understanding of the world around us. Also, thought. Thought is an internal conversation that helps individuals to interpret symbols and meanings. Through this, people modify their interpretations based on interactions. There's a good example of, for example, good example of tree that you're coming in a hot day and maybe you want to relax under this big apple tree. And that tree can be a source of food for some people that has apples, right? But you want to use it for taking a rest for a little bit because it's a hot day. So you're going to the shade of this tree and sitting in there and relaxing. For you, the meaning of the tree is relaxation, that shade it provides, right? All of a sudden you realize that there's so many spiders on this tree, and it becomes the symbol of danger, that you're scared of spiders and you try to get out of there as soon as possible. So for you, that the meaning attached to that symbol, tree, shade, changed all of a sudden, and now it became dangerous, right? So you will just go away from the tree. Or a dog, for example, your neighbor has a dog, and that dog is for them a friend, maybe family member, maybe child, or whatever companion, whatever they feel about their dog. And dog barks, and then when you go out, dog runs towards you. The meaning of that friend and companion or whatever it is changes when it comes to you, because for you that dog is harm or dangerous. At least it's something scary, right? So the meanings are fluid. They can change from one situation to another, and then they can also change depending on who is looking at certain thing, right? So all these thoughts is constructed in you, like it's your thoughts, because the dog is the same dog and the tree is the same tree. What is changing is your thought towards them based on your experience. So meaning has changed in your thoughts, and then you start to react to that. So that's why thought is another element in understanding the construction of reality in society. So George Herbert Mead's contribution. Probably you heard about Mead's contribution to symbolic interactionism through I and me. For him, this I and me has two different meanings. For example, I say I, it is its creative, active aspect of the self, me. But the me is you. When I'm seeing me, I am considering other people around me. It's a socialized aspect of self, shaped by societal expectations and norms. Mead explains that children develop their sense of self by taking on roles. This happens in stages from play, imitating others, to more complex games where they understand the roles of multiple people simultaneously. So now we're talking about people's roles in society, right? Role taking, like that starts with kids. Mead's arguing that maybe they were playing, like I remember when I was a little girl, we had the tea parties with our friends, and then some of us will come as a guest, and the others will they'll invite them in and make this tiny teapots, like we made them ourselves through the dirt, like we made a clay and made this stuff and let it dry in the sun and those stuff. So we would just take this little teapots and give them tea, or we had some other stuff, whatever. So what I'm trying to say here is the people, the children will imitate other people. They see their parents, how they, bring guests in, and then they maybe offer tea or sweets or whatever it is, and they sit and have a conversation. They imitate them first. And then as time passes, they will have their own role in society as friends or guest or somebody host who that has people over. So that starts with imitation. So role taking basically, according to Mead, does not just start all of a sudden. We imitate others and prepare ourselves to take different roles in society. As time passes, people become independent and grown up, and then they start to take roles. As a children, for example, we try to explain, like, you're a big brother, you're a big sister, now you need to do this, and now you need to do that, right? We are assigning roles to them as well as they are trying to accept that roles. So that's what the Mead's argument here. The role of interaction in society, the interaction, as we already mentioned, that based on, interaction is everything. Like our culture is shaped through interaction, our understanding of self shapes through interaction, language shapes through interaction, our everything around us is a social construction that's shaped through interaction. If you want to read this, social life is a process of constant interaction where meanings are constantly negotiated and modified. So if the meanings we are not agree with, we try to negotiate them. We try to have conversations. Even the conflicts are about negotiating certain things in society, certain meanings in society. Society is not static structure, but is constantly evolving through everyday interactions, and the meaning is attributed to different actions and events. So the meanings are fluid and they change, and we are always negotiating the meanings of certain things through interaction. For example, as I mentioned that there is a dog that barks, and then your neighbor comes and says, like, don't be afraid. Actually, he or she is very friendly, but they like to see if you're scared. And then you stop, and then you come closer and slowly go and try to touch the dog. And now you are negotiating with this animal that you are okay, and the animal is okay for you. The meaning of that animal or dog changes because somebody introduced you as, like, this is a process. You have to overcome this and dog will be okay with you, right? So that is what how roles or meanings change through interaction. When it comes to roles, you have certain roles at home, certain roles at the university, certain roles when you are on the bus, certain roles when you go to work, certain role when you interact in the courthouses, for example. So the role is the outcome of your interaction or the social action. What role you're playing in this action is depending on where you are in life. For example, maybe you're a student today, and then you might be a professor tomorrow. So your role as a student or professor is based on the interaction of what kind of functions you're doing in society. So as I always try to say, that there's no best theory in sociology. There's all different kinds of theories. There is their huge contribution that helps us to understand society, social systems, social structures, all different phenomena, social phenomena. However, there are always criticism exists, and without that, we can't really imagine academia. The criticism of symbolic interactionism is it's in the micro level. It overemphasis on individual agency. So the criticism is there is an overemphasis on individual agency. Critics argue that symbolic interactionism may focus too much on individual level interactions and overlooks larger social structures like class and power and institutions. So basically, we can say that social structures affect us, and it's not only based on our daily interactions. So perhaps the symbolic interactionism kind of overlooks that side of society, which explained by structural functionalism and also conflict theory. And while it excels the explaining face-to-face interactions, symbolic interactionism often does not address the broader social forces that create inequality. It's just the same thing again, like we are not considering structural forces. We are kind of focusing on individual or the most as group interactions, right? The meanings and symbols and all of those stuff. And we are just overlooking all these structural forces. That is the criticism toward the symbolic interactionism. So in the real world, where do we see structural interactionism? First of all, I have to say that education perhaps would not exist if we didn't have symbols and meanings. Because we have language and because we have shared beliefs and shared symbols, we can study and pass our knowledge to next generations. That's how we built epistemology, that, there is, the build-up knowledge about society and social life, right? And also that in the education system, there is a theory of fulfilling prophecy, which means that if you assign label certain students with certain names, that if you say, oh, you're a star student, you do so well in this area or that area, or if you discriminate a student saying like you're stupid, you don't know how to do this, that can become internalized by those individuals. And then that internalization of certain labels, which we talk in our next lecture, can become reality, which called self-fulfilling prophecy. So that shows that, symbols matter, and the internalization of certain symbols can create self, right? Social identity, how individuals in various groups, gender, race, and other stuff construct and negotiate their identities based on social codes. So who we are is a shared symbols about ourselves. And through these interactions, through talking to other people, being in interaction with family members and friends and co-workers, that shapes who we are in society, shapes our social identity, shapes our understanding of ourselves. Also media, the way symbols in media, for example, celebrity culture, fashion, advertisement, and you can say so much about it, shape public perceptions of behavior. For example, I give a lot of examples about how media shapes our understanding of beauty standards, for example, or our understanding of body shape and our understanding of what kind of body shapes assigned to what kind of people. As a woman, we understand certain acceptable standards, or men. in our world, sometimes it's becoming harmful because, certain body image is created, like slim or tall, or certain hair color, certain look is more acceptable than the others, which people try very hard to reach that symbol. And then sometimes they're never happy with themselves because that is unattainable. And maybe it's just created just to idealize certain body shapes. Or when it comes to masculinity as well, that certain body shapes created and people work so hard to get there and never happy from their own outlook. So this is the real world applications of symbolic interactionism. In conclusion, symbolic interactionism offers a nuanced understanding of how meaning is created and maintained through interactions. It emphasized the role of individual in constructing social reality while also showing how this process shapes society. This theory highlights the importance of symbols, language, and communication in everyday life and social interaction. I write this for a reason. So if I explain with few words here, social interactionism looks at symbols, meanings, and values and belief systems as a social fabric. Without that, we're lost. We are just kind of like, very isolated creatures. We don't know how to interact or understand one another. So symbolic interactionism shows the importance of this all, that we are living in the world, we can interact, understand, and which is the main fabric of society. So that this is our short lecture on symbolic interactionism, and we will continue this conversation in our next lecture. Thank you for your time. I'll see you in a bit.